Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Jana Cito, and this is the course BUS 3203, Fujairah Women's College, and the course is entitled Strategic Management and Business Policy Simulation. This is week 2 or 3, and what we're going to be doing here is looking at, where is that? What are we doing this week? Yes, here we are. We're looking at the reading on the CESIM, and there's 2 readings. This one is about the case itself, and I've actually recorded part 1 already, and so this is, I guess, part 2 of the, going over the readings. And why are we doing this? Because your team has to choose a strategic approach. A competitive strategic approach is a plan to win, and you're in the simulation that will start very, very soon. So in order to have a plan to win, first of all, you have to study the environment to find out what's going on. So you can have a plan that fits. Let's see, where did that go? Where are we? Let's see, fit. There we are. So that you have a plan that fits what's going on. So remember, in a SWOT analysis, you look at the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Your strengths and weaknesses are what's internal to your company, your business, and then the OT, opportunities and threats of the rivals, of the environment that you're working in, and other factors that you probably haven't had a chance to consider in a business, international business environment, because for many of you, this is the first introduction to operating in a business environment. So let's go to, the readings, remember, just a quick reminder, the readings. So there's 2 readings, case description, which is what we're doing now, and then the CESIM Global Challenge, which is very detailed. How very detailed? Let me see if I can pick it up. Very detailed. Let's see, there it is, very detailed. So very detailed is, starts there, and then I think, what was that one? 10? Let's see. All right, so no, that was flow of operations. Okay, so what we did the previous video was we looked at where this fits in. Okay, so let me just, this thing's been shifting around. Okay, so what we did was we looked at what you are producing in the CESIM. You are all manufacturers of cell phones or mobile phones, as some of you say over here. And so you're going to be looking at all these areas. And so the decision-making overview, what we're doing now is we're looking at what's the environment. And when you come to pay the simulation, you look at the market conditions, and then from there you set your demand. And the demand that you set guides all of the operations. So remember, you are, let's see, R&D, marketing, productions, logistics, and finance. So as I say, the market conditions give you information, and you do your best to guess what the demand is. And when you've set your best guess of what the demand is, then all the other people who are in your team, they can use that as a guideline to set the individual, what do they call it, individual decisions. Okay, so and they suggest you do it in this order. We don't have the option of HR here in our simulation. So when it says investments is part of production. Let me go back. So let's see where we are. Here we are. So we've spent some time talking about why you all have the same money, you all have the same market share, and it's because it was an oligopoly, but the U.S. Department of Justice has broken you folks up. You've been told it's got to stop, and so the new management team is your team to go in. And things are not going to be this cozy oligopoly. You're going to be very competitive. We spent some time over the history of the industry, and we looked at the market. Remember, One way to tell you can win, to get your name on the plaque as top 1, 2, 3, is to maximize TSR. But let's take a look. So what we're going to do now is look at production, all of the operations, production, R&D, sales, marketing, technologies, transportation, logistics, international taxes, and finance. And we can do this. I'm hoping we can do this in half an hour. And you are lucky that we're doing this recording, because you can pause the recording whenever you need to pause the recording. Sorry, this thing just came off. So I think I'm going to start with R&D. I think for me, it makes it easier to comprehend. So remember, we looked at you've got 3 market areas: USA, Europe, and Asia. And Europe really likes new technologies and features. USA probably next. Asia, not so interested in that. In that this area of Asia, it's a relatively poor area. You probably learned this in your macroeconomics classes, compared to this area of the world. And so they have restrictions. I mean, I think everybody I know likes an iPhone 5S, but not a lot of people can afford it in this area of the world. So that's why features and technology is not something that's going to drive sales here as it would in Europe and Asia. Okay, so with that in mind, okay, R&D is extremely important for IT because of the dynamic nature of the industry. So you've got 7 rounds. Things are going to go really, really quickly, and it's not boring. Okay, so the reason why it's not boring? Everybody likes the new thing. And also, they say margins from old products decline rapidly due to tight competition. I'll give you a real life example. iPad 1. It works. It's still good. I still use my iPad 1, which I bought several years ago. But the thing is, Apple cannot sell iPad 1s anymore, because they're getting competition from all these other tablet makers. And the other tablet makers really capture everybody's attention. You remember, iPad, the original one, it works very well, but it's slow because it's older technology, and it doesn't have as many features as a new, like Galaxy Tab or the iPad 4, which is now called the iPad Air. They have camera functions. iPad doesn't. So this is what we mean by technology. Old products, they decline rapidly because of tight competition. So our margins in that, you sell a lot of old product, or fine, you can sell it, but you're not going to make as much money because, as I say, not many people are going to buy it. Okay, good technology, iPad 1, but it's just old, and people aren't going to buy them. And which is why Apple does a great job in, when they come up with a new technology like this iPad Air, which is the iPad 4, they took off the market the iPad, okay, sorry, my apologies. The newest iPad now is basically, I think they call it the iPad, they don't call it the iPad 5, it's the iPad Air. But when they released that, iPad 3 and iPad 4 were taken off the market. You can't buy them unless, like, new from Apple. You can buy iPad 2 from Apple, but you can't buy 3 and 4. And I'm sure people are wondering why. And I've heard it's because, well, there's many reasons for that. But anyways, I don't want to get into other discussion. Basically, if you sell old products, you're not going to make as much money from them, because you're not going to sell as much. Right, so now let's go into what does this say. Because companies have a choice of performing their own R&D or outsourcing it. So outsourcing by purchasing technology licenses for the technologies or the related features. I think of it as and so anyways, the first step of R&D is to develop the base upon which up to 10 specific features can be added. Okay, and one noticeable difference between in-house and technology licenses, when you make your R&D internally, you're not going to be able to use the technology until the next period. But if you buy it, you can use it right away. And I'll give you an example. Okay, I'm going to use chicken. I like food, so I'm going to use chicken. So in a company like KFC, etc., or okay, your house, you have the choice of either making your own chicken, which is performing your own R&D, or basically you can purchase it. So why would you make your own R&D or make your own chicken? Well, if you go to the grocery store and you buy a fresh chicken or a frozen chicken, then in order to eat it, you have to spend a lot of money heating the oven. You have to spend time seasoning the chicken. You have to have time putting it in the oven, and you have to cook it. So sometimes you cook a chicken, it takes 20 minutes or an hour, but you have to wait. So you spend money for R&D, but you spend money buying the chicken, and you spend time roasting it, and you spend time when it's Apple, for example. They took a long time to come up with the iPad. It just takes time. So if you want something quick, like now, if you want to eat the chicken right now, the best thing to do is just go buy a chicken. There's lots of places in Fujairah where you can buy a chicken. You can go to Lulu, buy a chicken that's cooked. You can go to Carrefour. There's lots of shops where you can buy a cooked chicken. You could go to KFC and buy a cooked chicken. And one of the features about KFC chicken is it's already fried. It's maybe comes with sauce or something. So, but you know what? To buy it, it costs more money than if you make it yourself. So it costs more, but it's available immediately. So if you outsource and you buy technology, which is, they call it licensing, yeah, it's right away. But you pay for it. It's more expensive than if you make the R&D or the chicken in-house. As I say, but if you do go cheap, not cheap, but yes, if you spend not a lot of money, you make it yourself, that's great. You won't be able to use it until the next period, i.e., if you buy it in Tech 1, you can use it in Tech 1. If you choose to invest in R&D in Tech 1 and make it in-house, you can't use it until round 2. Okay, so be careful. You buy it, you pay more, it's available in the same round. If you want to make it yourself, you won't be able to use it until the next round. Okay, right. Okay. So here's another thing to keep in mind. If you make your R&D in-house, yeah, it's cheaper, because they say it's a gradual investment. Whereas if you buy it, it's give me the money now, i.e., give me the technology now. Okay. So as I say, these are some interesting numbers to keep in mind. A typical company in the industry spends as much as 10% of sales revenue in R&D. So when you do your decisions, when you try to figure out how much to spend on R&D, keep that in mind, 10%. So when you are developing your winning strategy, okay, so you have to say, I have to spend money in R&D. How much? Up to 10% of your sales revenue. So don't just pick any number out of the hat. Base it on your sales revenue. All right, now here it is. This is something that you use in the scenario, in the simulation, but not in real life. In this case, any money you spend on R&D, it shows up on your income statement, and that means profit and loss statement. In real life, R&D does not, like, you can't throw it all in your income statement. You have to capitalize it on your balance sheet. So it's seen as a capital asset, which is amortized or depreciated over time. Now, for something like that, you go talk to your accounting professor, but don't need to do it because in this simulation, it all comes out of profit and loss. Okay, so income statement. Now, for those of you who are really interested in accounting, this is really significant, but those of you who are not, don't worry about it. Okay, so anyways, R&D. Now, technologies. It says so far the companies have been manufacturing Tech 1 mobile handsets. So Tech 1. So instead of saying Technology 1, we call it Tech 1. Tech 1 is like G2? Yeah, I think G2 or G1. So it's your basic, everybody uses that technology. Now, you should look in, I think it's under demand. Yes, under demand, it talks about networks. And they will show you when the new networks are coming in. So what you should do is when you see new networks coming in, consider technology, R&D for technology that will fit the new networks, new network capability. Now, it costs a lot of money to go from technology 1 to technology 2 to tech 3 to tech 4. But if it's in line with the new mobile networks, as I say, prosperous time for the company. Another word for prosperous time is SCA, sustainable competitive advantage. I mean, that certainly is possible. Okay. So all the technologies are dependent on the networks. So if you have an area which just uses Tech 1 network infrastructure, and you have a Tech 4 coming out, not going to work. In real life, you have some situations like that too. And I can give you an example, but actually that's beyond the bounds of this course. But in other words, don't sell stuff that people aren't going to use. Okay. All right. So anyways, on the this is what I said. Yeah. So on the demand page, you can check the network coverage forecast. So when they're developing the new networks and making them workable. Great. Features. Remember we said one of your market areas loves features and the others, well, not quite as much. Okay. So, and it's true, the technology of the sandphones aren't really different, but it's the features. Okay. So think of this. Apple. And I use Apple a lot because they just happen to do a really good job. An Apple phone is really not that different from a BlackBerry or a Nokia or a Samsung phone. But why do people like Apple? Like the iPhone 5, it really looks nice. It's a beautiful phone. It's like design is very important. Color screens. Apple iPhone 5C, remember they come in different colors. Ringtones is another feature. Multimedia. Does it support something? Music downloads, Skype, etc. Gaming, as I say, it's something I'm not interested in, but other people are. And so, again, Europeans really like their features. Asia, not so much. They're more sensitive in price. So remember, sensitivity, you probably remember it from economics, is not are you happy, are you sad, are you tearful? It means when prices change, do people buy more or less? Okay, so that's that. Okay, so I'm glad I decided to do R&D first. And now let's look at, I think sales is important, sales and marketing. All right, again, they've operated only in the US. Now they're going into Europe and Asia. Now marketing, very important. Yes, there's no other way to say it. If people don't know about your cell phone, they're not going to buy it. Now, how important is marketing? Well, US and Europe, very, very important. Asia, oh, it's less important, but still, it's important. So you should spend about, it says Typical marketing is between 3 to 5% of sales revenue. Now, if you want to spend more on marketing, yes. If you want to spend marketing, well, I don't know why you would spend less on marketing. So I don't think it's a good idea to spend less on marketing. Spend more, fine, if that's your strategy, fine. Okay, so that's the range. Remember we had another range over here? Or was that range? Oh, where was it? There's that other range. Okay. So now we've covered this, and now we go to look at production. So production. Production costs are complicated. Production is complicated, high costs, because you are building. When you build new models, new technology, then basically, yes, okay. So forces companies to adapt processes. So it's going to cost a lot of money to manufacture, but if you charge a premium for the price, that's okay. So it says production cost per unit will fall with learning curve effect. So basically, when you start manufacturing something totally new, it's going to cost a lot of money, but next year it'll cost less. Round 3 will cost even less. Okay, now building a plant. Why would you build a plant? Well, remember, this is growing at 20%. This is growing at 10%. This market is growing at 5 to 10%. So you're going to need to produce more to meet the demand. Now, when you build a plant, it takes 2 rounds. What that means is if in round 1 you decide we're going to build some factories and we're going to put them in Asia, then say you build 2 factories. You won't get those factories to work until round 3. So it's a good idea to build your plants with that in mind. It is extremely foolish. And every time I've taught this course, there's been at least one group that's made the big mistake, or as they call it, the big boo-boo, of deciding to build factories in the last round. And I think, Lish, why? Why would you do that? You've just wasted money. And when I show all the results on the screen, and I say, Lish, then that group is pretty embarrassed because they know that was really not a smart decision. And I always say to the CEO, why did you let that decision happen? And if they say something, well, the production person thought it was a good idea. Well, it doesn't matter whether the production person thought it was a good idea. Maybe they had an off day. You as the leader should make sure that no silly mistakes are made like that. So this is where leadership comes in. So I don't want to rant for this course, but I hope nobody makes that mistake, because if you do, you've been warned. If I see you making any mistakes like that waste money, I'm going to ask you to tell me why. Actually, tell your team why. And your team needs to explain why you let that happen. Okay, anyways, end of that rant. Okay, so sometimes you have the choice. You can outsource production. You can get somebody else to make it, like Foxconn. They can make it for you. They can do it cheaper. So you have your choice. You can either build factories yourself to make it, or you can use another outsourcing to do it. Okay, that's great. Let's see. Right. Now, I'm just going to check. This video is taking a long time, so maybe what I should do is stop here. Actually, no, I think I'll just go on, because this is the last page. Okay, so basically you have operations. Okay, so operations was production, R&D, sales, and marketing. This other part, transportation. So transportation is logistics, and you've taken that, I think you've taken an operations course, so this is quite familiar to you. So what it is they've made it simple. When you transport to another market, all you pay is the tariff or the tax plus the transportation cost, and that's it. And that's if you're transporting between market of, if you're transporting between market areas. So if you have in the USA, your right now your factories are all in the USA. If you sell things in Europe and you sell some of your cell phones in Asia, you have to pay their transportation costs, which you'll see on the simulation, plus whatever the tariff or the tax is. However, here's the good news. If you produce, if you're if you're in the USA, you build it in the USA, you sell it in the US, there is no logistic cost. In real life, it's different, but we're in a simulation, so just let that be your guide. You're not going to pay. And that's a good reason if you are expecting Asia to boom, and that's what they are expecting, then you might want to build factories in Asia so you can sell in Asia. You can avoid the tariff and the transportation costs. All right, here's international taxation. All right. These are sensitive issues. So basically, you want to even out your R&D expenditure. What we mean is right now R&D is all made in the USA. So it shows up in the profit loss or the income statement as an expense. So if you're selling in Europe and Asia, they don't incur that R&D expense, which actually is a little bit unfair when you think of it, because they don't have to pay to develop it, but when you sell it there, they keep all their the spreadsheets for those market areas. They show high profits because they just don't have that big R&D expense. So anyways, this is what you should really keep in mind when you're doing the transfer pricing. Okay, and you use this concept of multipliers. This goes into greater detail in this area. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I just say this is very brief. All right, now we're close to the end, which is great. Financing. So remember, what is finance? Finance is basically when we want to build a plant or we want to do research and development to produce new technologies, which is very expensive. Where do we get the money from? Well, this is where the finance people come in. So there's really, in the simulation, there's two ways. You can get it from your investors, or you can get it from lending institutions like banks. So if you are hoping to get your investors to pay for it, well then that's good. The investors will buy shares in your company and they hope that the company becomes more valuable, and when the company becomes more valuable, their share prices or their stock prices increase, and so investors then are quite delighted. And if you give them dividends later in the simulation, like don't give them out too early because you're going to need money to build the factories and R&D. You probably in the later stage of the game pay dividends. So the shareholders are happy there. They get share appreciation plus they get dividends, which mean higher TSR. So again, your companies are all listed on a stock exchange, so you can issue additional shares in order to get more equity financing. Okay, and remember, shareholders, they want an ROE in terms of dividends and capital gains. So one of the reasons why companies like to have increased shares and have equity is there's no legal obligation to pay back the investors who've bought into your company. But if you borrow money from lending institutions like banks, you have to pay them back, and they usually have an interest rate that you pay them back on at a certain schedule. Okay, so here we are. And there's the last part. So it says share price has been increasing, so basically it's called share appreciation. You pay dividends. Another way that you can increase your TSR is you can buy back shares. So if you've got the money from issuing shares, and then you've built the plants and you've done lots of investment in research and development, you find that you've made lots of money, you've got lots of cash, then yes, it's not a bad idea to buy back the shares. And the equity investors are happy when you buy back their shares because you set a price in which you buy back the shares at, and they get their return on equity, they're happy, they go away. You as a company will be happy too, because if you buy back a lot of your shares, when you do pay your dividends, there's fewer people you have to pay dividends to. And so that's the interesting thing about share buybacks. This is probably something you've studied in finance. So you'll be able to apply this. Okay, again, let's look at share lending institutions. So they can provide short-term or long-term loans. Now the short-term debts, it says always carry premium over long-term loan. What that means is it's more expensive for a short-term loan than a long-term loan. And long-term loans, I believe, here in the simulation, these are the bonds. Okay. Now, what happens with short-term loan is sometimes in the simulation, you've spent a lot on R&D, you're building plants, but the competition is so intense and keen that you don't sell as much as you expect. You don't sell as many cell phones. Maybe another company has underpriced you and they sell more. And you've got a lot that you just can't sell. You've got a lot of inventory. Well, in a case like that, a short-term loan may have happened according to the simulation. And so it's at a higher rate of interest. Or you might just say, I don't have enough capacity to get a long-term loan, a bond. So I really do need to, I really do need to take a short-term loan. So another thing I should mention is, and sometimes in the simulation, student teams have forgotten to pay back their loans. Try to pay it back. So the finance person has a very important job. Finance person has to make sure that when the people who are in production say, we need more plants, we're going to build, and R&D says, we need to do more investment in order to come up with new technology, they come to the finance person. The finance person has to say, well, do we? Yes, or maybe no, or maybe instead of 10 plants, maybe 9 or 8, the numbers work this way. And sometimes they say, okay, fine, if you want to do this, I'm going to have to issue more shares. We'll have to go for equity investment. And maybe I do need to issue bonds, which are basically lending institutions have to pay back in terms of interest. Okay, so remember, equity is they own shares of the company. Bond is they have a debt, you have to pay it back. But they don't own any shares of your company. Okay, another thing that you'll find is internal transfers between different countries or different market areas. So you might find you've got lots of profits in Asia. It's booming. And you need to bring it back to the US because you've probably, well, in the US, that's where you've maybe spent all your R&D money and you've got a shortfall. So use this internal treasury management in order to move money around. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think that, yes, I've covered this entire 4 pages. If you have any further questions, I'm afraid that that's all the information that's provided for the simulation here. There's, I think, some really good information here in the very detailed package provided by the CESIM. Okay, and in many cases, ladies and gentlemen, you're just going to have to try your very, very best. And that's why we have these practice rounds. So very good luck. Hope your teams work together very well. Remember, try to keep pace. Once you fall behind, well, that's just not a very good place to be. So good luck, and I'm just going to terminate this recording. And so remember, when you're in class, okay, so where is it? Yes. So, yes, here we are for week 2. Use the information of the CESIM to help develop your competitive strategy and decide which of the strategies that have been discussed in class are the ones that work for you. So one of these ones. There we are. Bas.